Welcome to Lukebook, Money and Wealth Building, explained for Singapore, not borrowed from somewhere else. In this episode, where the money to invest actually comes from, and the Singapore-specific levers that quietly free up thousands of dollars a month to put to work. In our last episode, we built the machine, the $1 million portfolio that quietly pays you around $50,000 a year. But we skipped the hardest part. Where does the money to feed that machine actually come from? Because a brilliant investment plan is useless if you have nothing to invest. This episode is about the other half of wealth, not what you do with your capital, but how to get more of it, every single month. And almost none of it is about earning a bigger salary. Let's break it down, the Singapore way. Here is the entire secret of building capital, in one line. Your investable money is not your income. It is the gap, the space between what you earn and what you spend. Two people can earn the exact same salary. One saves nothing, the other saves $2,000 a month. After 10 years, one has a stack of memories, the other has a small fortune compounding away. Same income, completely different lives. So the goal of everything that follows is simple: widen the gap. You can do it from the top, by earning more, or from the bottom, by spending and wasting less. Most people only ever think about the top. The real wins are usually at the bottom. Let's put real numbers on it. The median full-time Singaporean earns around $5,800 a month before deductions, take home, very roughly, $5,000. Now watch what your savings rate does. Save 10%, and you invest $500 a month. Save 30%, $1,500. 40%, $2,000. 50%, $2,500 a month. And remember from last episode, $2,000 a month, invested at 5%, becomes $1 million in about 23 years. Your savings rate is not a boring detail. It is the single biggest dial you control on this entire journey. So let's learn how to turn it up. Let's start at the top of the gap, earning more. There's a hard floor on how little you can spend, you still need to eat, and to live. But there is no ceiling on how much you can earn. So while spending less is often the faster win, growing your income is the one with no limit. The trick is making sure that extra income actually reaches your portfolio, and doesn't just evaporate into a bigger lifestyle. We'll come back to that trap. First, the 3 real ways Singaporeans grow what they earn. Here's an uncomfortable truth your employer would rather you didn't know. In Singapore, the fastest route to a real pay rise is usually to leave. Surveys in 2025 found that more than 4 in 10 professionals who changed jobs landed raises of over 10%. Meanwhile, the average annual increment for those who stayed put was under 3%, and a third of workers got nothing at all. Loyalty, sadly, is rarely rewarded with money. Now, I'm not telling you to job hop recklessly, your reputation and your skills still matter most. But every few years, testing your value on the open market is one of the most powerful, and most underused, levers on your income. A single well-timed move can lift your salary by a decade's worth of increments, overnight. The second income lever is the one the government will literally pay you to pull: your skills. Singapore's SkillsFuture scheme gives every citizen aged 40 and above a $4,000 training credit that does not expire. And if you go further, taking approved full-time training to switch careers, there's a mid-career training allowance that can pay you half your previous income, up to $3,000 a month, while you retrain. Think about that. The state is subsidizing you to become more valuable, and therefore better paid, for the rest of your working life. Upskilling isn't an expense. In Singapore, it's one of the few genuinely free lunches on offer. And the third lever is the biggest of all, and the one most likely to actually make you wealthy. Owning something. A business, even a small side venture. When you work for a salary, your income is capped by your hours and your boss's budget. When you own, your income is capped only by the value you create. Almost every self-made fortune, in Singapore and everywhere else, traces back not to a salary, but to ownership of a business, of equity, of assets that earn while you sleep. A side venture that nets an extra $1,000 a month is not pocket money. Invested, that's the difference between retiring comfortably and retiring rich. You don't have to quit your job tomorrow. But the path to a really big gap almost always runs through owning, not just earning. Now to the bottom of the gap, and this is where the real money quietly hides. Most savings advice is obsessed with the small stuff. Skip your daily coffee, they say, and you'll be rich. It's nonsense. A $5 coffee, even every single day, is under $2,000 a year. Meanwhile, 2 decisions in a Singaporean's life, what you drive, and where you live, can swing your savings gap by hundreds of thousands of dollars. These are the big rocks. Get them right, and you can drink all the coffee you like. Get them wrong, and no amount of latte skipping will ever save you. Big rock number 1, the car. Nowhere on earth is driving a bigger wealth destroyer than in Singapore, and that's by design. As of the June 2026 bidding exercise, a certificate of entitlement for a normal Category A car costs $126,000. That is just the license, before you've paid a single cent for the actual car. At the car itself, the loan interest, road tax, insurance, petrol, parking and servicing, and the realistic all-in cost of owning one ordinary Toyota over 10 years comes to around $244,000. Roughly 1.5 times the showroom price. And that example used last year's lower COE, at today's prices, it's even more. $250,000, to get around an island you can cross by train in an hour. But here's the part that should stop you cold. That $244,000, spread over 10 years, works out to almost exactly $2,000 a month. And if that number sounds familiar, it should. In our last episode, we saw that $2,000 a month, invested at 5%, grows into $1 million in a little over 2 decades. So let that sink in. The car is not just a car. The car is the $1 million portfolio, the very same money, pointed at a depreciating metal box instead of a compounding machine. Going car light in Singapore, taking the train, with the occasional taxi, isn't deprivation. For many people, it is quietly the single largest investment decision they will ever make. Big rock number 2 is even bigger, where you live. A home is a genuine need, but in Singapore it's also the largest check most people ever sign, and the biggest single lever on your savings gap. In 2025, a 4-room HDB resale flat averaged around $670,000. An executive flat, over $900,000. A private condo, often $1.5 million or more. Now, you have to live somewhere. But the difference between a sensible flat and a stretch condo isn't just the price tag, it's a mortgage that's hundreds of thousands of dollars bigger, with interest piled on top, quietly swallowing your income for decades. Buying less home than the bank will happily lend you is, without question, one of the most powerful wealth decisions in Singapore. So before you feel guilty about your morning kopi, get the order of operations right. The math is brutal, but freeing. That daily coffee costs you maybe $1,800 a year. The car costs you $24,000 a year. The oversized home can cost you that much again. The big rocks aren't 10 or 20% of the picture, they are the picture. Win the 2 or 3 decisions that genuinely move the needle: the car, the house, and not inflating your lifestyle every single time you get a raise, and you've earned the right to never think about small money again. Discipline on the big things is what buys you freedom on the small ones. Now for a lever that feels almost like cheating, because the money is already yours. You're just stopping the taxman from taking it. Every dollar of tax you legally save is a dollar of investable capital, conjured out of thin air. And Singapore hands you several big, perfectly legal switches to flip. The catch? Most people never flip them. They quietly overpay their taxes every single year, and then wonder why there's nothing left over to invest. First, understand how you're taxed, because it changes everything. Singapore's income tax is tiered. Your first $20,000 is taxed at 0. The next slices climb gradually, 2%, then 3.5%, then 7% once you pass 40,000. Cross 80,000 a year, and your next dollars are taxed at 11.5%. Pass 120,000, 15%. The key idea here is your marginal rate, the tax on your highest, last dollars of income. Because every dollar you can legally leave out of that top slice, and into the right account, is a dollar saved at your highest rate. And that is exactly what makes the next two switches so powerful. Switch number 1, the Supplementary Retirement Scheme, better known as SRS. You can put in up to $15,300 a year, and every dollar is subtracted from your taxable income. Take someone earning $120,000, whose top slice is taxed at 11.5%. Max out their SRS, and they save about $1,760 in tax, instantly. That's not a return you hope for, it's a guaranteed 11.5%, the very day you contribute. And the higher your income, the bigger that saving gets. You then invest the money inside the SRS, and only half of it is taxed when you finally withdraw it in retirement. For higher earners, it is one of the closest things to free money the tax code allows. Switch number 2, topping up your CPF. Beyond your automatic monthly contributions, you can voluntarily top up your own retirement savings and earn tax relief on up to $8,000 a year. Top up your parents' or your spouse's CPF as well, and that's another $8,000, $16,000 of tax relief in total. You're doing 3 things at once: cutting your tax bill, boosting your family's guaranteed 4% retirement savings, and, if it's your parents, something genuinely kind. There is an overall ceiling, $80,000 of total tax relief a year, so the very highest earners do eventually max out. But for most people, these switches are just sitting there, completely unused, every single April. Now stack these switches together, and the numbers get serious. A higher earner who maxes their SRS and tops up CPF for themselves and a parent can legally erase over $20,000 from their taxable income, handing back $2, $3, sometimes $3,500 in tax, every single year. And that's not a one-off. It's an annual rebate you pay to yourself, for paperwork that takes about an afternoon. Invest that saved tax, year after year, and the taxman quietly becomes one of the biggest contributors to your portfolio. Most Singaporeans leave this money sitting on the table their entire working lives. Don't be most Singaporeans. So far we've widened the gap by earning more and by keeping more. Now the fourth lever, and a sneaky one, making the money you already have work harder. Most people are sitting on capital that is quietly leaking, or fast asleep, cash earning nothing, a mortgage costing too much, premiums vanishing into a bad policy. Plugging these leaks doesn't require earning a single extra dollar. It is free money, hiding in plain sight. Start with your cash. Most Singaporeans keep tens of thousands of dollars sitting in an ordinary bank account, earning almost nothing, often less than 0.5%. That's not safety, it's slow erosion, as inflation quietly eats it. And the fix is easy and low risk. Singapore Treasury bills, fixed deposits, and especially money market funds let your idle cash earn something real. Money market funds have recently paid in the region of 2.5 to 3.5%. Take $50,000 of emergency and waiting cash. Left in a typical account, it earns you almost nothing, maybe $25 a year. In a money market fund at 3%, around $1,500. Same money, same access, same safety, about $1,500 more, for 10 minutes of admin. Next, your largest expense of all, the mortgage. Home loan interest rates in Singapore have fallen sharply. By mid-2026, the benchmark SORA rate had dropped to around 1%, with fixed packages near 1.7. But if you locked in a loan during the high-rate years, you might still be quietly paying 3% or more, and may not even have noticed. Refinancing, or repricing with your existing bank, closes that gap. On a $500,000 loan, dropping from 3.5% to 1.7% can cut your monthly repayment by around $450. That's $450 a month, over $5,000 a year, freed up, just by signing a few forms. Go and check your mortgage rate. It might just be the highest paid afternoon of your entire year. There's one more advanced way to unlock trapped capital, and it comes with a serious health warning. If you own a private property, you are very likely sitting on a large pile of locked-up equity. Banks will let you borrow against it, cheaply, through what's called a home equity, or term loan. Because it's secured against your property, the interest rate is low, recently around 2 to nearly 3%. The idea is simple: borrow at, say, 2.5%, invest it for more, and pocket the spread. Now, two crucial caveats. First, and this one matters a lot in Singapore, you can only do this with private property. Banks are not allowed to let you cash out equity from an HDB flat, full stop. And even then, you can only borrow against the part you paid in cash, not the portion funded by your CPF. Second, and far more important, this is leverage. It magnifies your losses just as surely as your gains. You must keep servicing that loan even if your investments fall, and the interest rate can rise. Done with a big margin of safety and a stable income, it's a tool the wealthy quietly use. Done carelessly, it is exactly how people get wiped out. Respect it. Now a more uncomfortable leak, and this one might be wearing a friendly face. Many Singaporeans are sold investment-linked policies, or ILPs, that promise to grow your money and ensure you at the very same time. The problem is the fees. These products stack charge upon charge, insurance costs, fund management fees, administration, and sales commissions, quietly eating your returns, year after year after year. Worse, as you age, the rising cost of the insurance is often paid by silently selling off your own investment units. The cleaner approach, long preached by independent advisors, is just 4 words: buy term, invest the rest. Get cheap, pure insurance to protect your family, then invest the difference yourself, in low-cost funds, and keep the returns the ILP would otherwise have skimmed. There's one more source of investable capital, and it tends to arrive in lumps: windfalls. The year-end bonus. The tax refund. The inheritance. And for some, the big one, selling a business. How you handle these moments matters enormously, because a windfall is a rare chance to leap forward, or to quietly blow it. Start with the everyday windfall, the bonus, the 13th month, the annual wage supplement. Here's what usually happens to it. It lands, it feels like extra, and within a month or two it has quietly dissolved into a holiday, a gadget, a nicer watch. Now, nothing wrong with celebrating, but the wealthy treat windfalls differently. The habit is simple: decide where the bonus goes before it even arrives. Pay yourself first, in a single lump. Send the bulk of it straight into your investments the day it lands, and then enjoy what's left, completely guilt-free. A 2-month bonus, captured and invested every year for a whole career, can quietly become a second portfolio all on its own. Now for the business owners watching, and in Singapore, there are many. Your company is both your biggest income lever and your biggest pile of trapped capital. 2 questions matter. First, how you pay yourself. In Singapore, dividends from your own company are tax-free in your hands, which can make them more efficient than pure salary past a certain point, well worth a conversation with your accountant. Second, and harder, how much to reinvest into the business versus extract and diversify. Pouring everything back in can grow the company, but it also means your entire net worth is riding on one single venture. The disciplined owner regularly takes chips off the table, moving profit out of the business and into a diversified portfolio, so that a great business doesn't quietly turn into a dangerous, all-or-nothing bet. And when the truly big windfall finally comes, a maturing policy, an inheritance, the sale of a business, there's one question everyone asks. Should I invest it all at once, or feed it in slowly, to be safe? The data has a clear, if slightly uncomfortable, answer. Vanguard studied this across decades of market history, and found that investing a lump sum immediately beat drip-feeding it in about 2/3 of the time. Markets rise more often than they fall, so sitting on the sidelines usually just means missing gains. Feeding it in slowly only wins if a crash happens to be right around the corner, which, of course, no one can reliably predict. So the textbook answer is, invest the lump promptly. The honest answer is, if putting it all in at once would keep you awake at night, then spreading it over a few months is a perfectly reasonable price to pay for peace of mind. So let's pull all 5 levers together now, because used at once, they compound on each other in a way that can genuinely transform your finances, without a single raise. Look at what we've assembled, and notice that almost none of it required earning a single dollar more. Skipping the car, and investing instead, around $2,000 a month. Refinancing the mortgage, $450 more. Waking up your idle cash, $100 a month. Stacking your tax reliefs, a couple of hundred more. And capturing your bonus, instead of spending it. Add it all up, and an ordinary Singaporean can find $1, $2, even $3,000 a month to invest, money that was always there, just leaking out the sides. This is the quiet truth the wealthy understand. You don't need to get rich before you start investing. You need to stop the leaks, and point the gap at the machine. And here is why every dollar of that gap matters so much, because it doesn't just add up, it compounds. Remember the timeline from last episode? At $1,000 a month, reaching $1 million takes about 33 years. Lift your gap to 2,000, and it falls to 23. Push it to 2,500, well within reach once you've pulled these levers, and you're there in about 20 years. Widening the gap doesn't just give you more to invest. It pulls your entire finish line years, sometimes decades, closer. The gap is the lever. Compounding is the multiplier. And together, they are the whole game. So that's the other half of wealth. Episode 1 showed you the machine, this one showed you the fuel. And the fuel was never really about earning a fortune. It's about the gap, and the handful of decisions that widen it. Earn more where you can, switch, upskill, own something. Keep more where it counts, the car, the home, the lifestyle you refuse to inflate. Flip the free switches, your tax reliefs, your sleeping cash, your overpriced mortgage. And when the lumps arrive, capture them. None of it is glamorous. All of it is within your control. Find a gap, widen it, and feed the machine, and the maths from last episode does the rest. I'm glad you spent this time with me. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. If this made building wealth in Singapore a little clearer, give it a like, and subscribe to Lukebook so you don't miss the next episode. See you in the next one.